My name is William, and for years, my worth, my very identity, was dictated by the people who claimed to love me most, my family. My uncle, the man I poured my soul into building a business for, casually tossed me aside like yesterday's trash. My parents, his own brother and sister-in-law, stood by, silent witnesses to the deepest betrayal of my life. They watched as I was systematically undervalued, dismissed, and ultimately discarded. They saw my years of blood, sweat, and relentless dedication to a struggling company dismissed as if it were a child's fleeting hobby. But what they couldn't see, what their arrogance and short-sightedness truly blinded them to, was the intricate, indispensable infrastructure I had woven into the very fabric of that business. They were so focused on their own petty power plays, their ingrained favoritism, that they never imagined the quiet storm I was brewing. Their faces, once radiating smug superiority, would soon drain of all color, contorted by a shock so profound it would shake their world to its foundations. They never saw it coming, and when their desperate, urgent call finally came, when the very ground beneath them began to crumble, it was already far too late to save him, or them, from the irreversible consequences of their monumental betrayal. If you've ever been made to feel like you're not enough, like your hard work is invisible, or that your own family just doesn't see your true worth, hit that like button. Drop a comment below and tell me if you believe that true value is measured not by blood, but by integrity, effort, and an unyielding spirit. From my earliest memories, my life felt like a perpetual audition for a role I was never cast in. Our extended family revolved around my Uncle David, my father's older brother, who, despite owning a perpetually struggling manufacturing business, carried himself with an air of unearned aristocracy, and at the center of his universe, and by extension, my own family's, was my cousin, Mark. Mark was the golden child, the heir apparent, the effortlessly charming and naturally gifted one, at least according to everyone but reality. I was born 3 years after Mark, and from the moment I could comprehend, I understood my place, the diligent, quiet second fiddle. While Mark's childhood was a tapestry woven with lavish gifts, extravagant trips, and constant praise, mine felt like a meticulously itemized ledger of expectations and understated acknowledgement. I remember my 6th birthday. Mark had just turned 9. His birthday, 6 months prior, had been a grand affair at an amusement park, complete with a professional magician and personalized party favors for all his friends. For my birthday, I received a modest bicycle, a practical gift, my parents explained, for getting around. Mark, however, had just received a brand new, top-of-the-line gaming console. When I excitedly showed them a drawing I'd spent hours on, a vibrant, detailed spaceship, my father simply patted my head and said, "That's nice, William. Did you see Mark's new science kit? He's building a real robot." The implicit message was always clear. Whatever I did, Mark did it better, bigger, or with more inherent talent. This dynamic intensified throughout my school years. Mark was naturally athletic, excelling in sports, which my father, Mark Sr., who had once dreamed of being a professional athlete himself, adored. My passions lay elsewhere, in the quiet hum of computers, in the intricate logic of code, in the vast, boundless world of information that technology unlocked. While Mark was celebrated for scoring a touchdown, I was often found buried in books on programming languages borrowed from the local library or tinkering with an old discarded computer my neighbor had given me. My parents, Emily and Mark Sr., would often sigh, "William, why can't you be more like Mark? He's so well-rounded. You spend too much time alone with those machines." Their voices, gentle as they tried to be, carried an undeniable undercurrent of disappointment. My Uncle David, in particular, saw my interest in technology as a quaint, irrelevant diversion. His company, Phoenix Innovations, was a relic, relying on outdated machinery, manual processes, and a sales strategy straight out of the 1980s. He believed in the old ways, the personal touch, completely oblivious to the digital revolution happening around him. He saw Mark, with his superficial charm and limited understanding of the business, as the ideal successor, a mirror image of himself. Mark would sit in on meetings, nodding sagely, while I, who devoured every business case study and technological advancement I could find, was considered a distraction. One pivotal moment, etched into my memory with painful clarity, occurred when I was 14. I had spent months, fueled by a nascent entrepreneurial spirit, designing a rudimentary website for a local bakery, complete with an online ordering system. It was my first real project, and it significantly boosted their sales. Emboldened, I presented a proposal to Uncle David and my father. I argued that Phoenix Innovations needed a digital presence, an e-commerce platform, a streamlined inventory system. I showed them graphs, projected growth, and even mocked up a basic website design. I explained how it could reduce overhead, expand their customer base beyond local suppliers, and make them competitive in the modern market. Uncle David listened, his arms crossed, a condescending smirk playing on his lips. My father sat beside him, his expression carefully neutral, avoiding my gaze. When I finished, Uncle David leaned back, a theatrical sigh escaping him. "William," he said, his voice dripping with forced patience, "that's very imaginative, but we're a manufacturing company, not some online gimmick. Our clients want a handshake, not a click. Mark understands this. He's out there, building relationships. You stick to your little games, son." He chuckled, and Mark, who was also present, joined in, a superior sneer on his face. My father just cleared his throat and mumbled, "Your uncle knows best, William. This isn't really our area." The words weren't shouted, but they hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just the dismissal of my ideas. It was the absolute invalidation of my intellect, my passion, my very being. The message was clear. I was seen as naive, impractical, and fundamentally unsuited for anything meaningful in their world. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach. The humiliation was searing, but beneath it, something else ignited, a quiet, burning resolve. I walked out of that office, not with tears, but with a vow whispered to myself, "You will see, you will all see." I would no longer seek their approval. I would build my own world, one where my worth was undeniable. That day marked the true beginning of my independent journey. The family, particularly Uncle David, seemed to forget my existence outside of obligatory holiday gatherings where my hobby would be casually mocked. While Mark was handed a managerial position at Phoenix Innovations, despite his obvious lack of aptitude or interest, I was effectively cut off. There was no financial support for university, no offers of internships, just the quiet assumption that I would eventually come to my senses and pursue a more practical path, perhaps one suggested by my uncle. But I had found my path. With the few savings I had from odd jobs, I enrolled in a local community college, taking every computer science and business analytics course I could. I worked 3 part-time jobs, tutoring, freelance web design, and even a graveyard shift at a convenience store, just to cover tuition, books, and basic living expenses. My diet consisted mostly of ramen noodles and black coffee. There were nights I slept for only a few hours, pushing myself to the absolute limit. My tiny rented room was perpetually cluttered with circuit boards, coding manuals, and energy drink cans. But every late night, every complex algorithm I finally cracked, every successful line of code was a victory, a brick laid in the foundation of my future. I didn't just study, I obsessed. I immersed myself in the cutting edge of digital transformation, e-commerce, and crucially, artificial intelligence. I saw how AI could revolutionize everything from supply chain logistics to customer relationship management. My theoretical knowledge quickly translated into practical skills. I taught myself advanced Python, R, machine learning frameworks. I participated in online coding competitions, often placing surprisingly high, which gave me invaluable confidence and a taste of true meritocracy. I started taking on small, complex projects for startups, often for little pay, just to build my portfolio and gain real-world experience. Each project was a masterclass in problem-solving and innovation, allowing me to hone my unique ability to bridge the gap between complex technological solutions and practical business applications. It was during this period of intense self-development that I found my true mentors and, eventually, my chosen family. Professor Eleanor Vance, my data science instructor at the community college, was the first to truly see my potential. She was a brilliant mind, unconventional, and fiercely intelligent. She pulled me aside after a particularly challenging class project. "William," she said, her eyes sharp and assessing, "you have a knack for this. More than a knack. You see patterns where others see noise. You don't just learn the theory. You instinctively understand the application. Don't let anyone tell you this isn't a viable path." Her words were a balm to my soul, a validation I had yearned for my entire life. She took me under her wing, guiding my research, introducing me to specialized journals, and connecting me with her network. Through Professor Vance, I met Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a retired but still influential tech investor and former CEO of a major software company. Dr. Tanaka became my most significant mentor. He saw the fire in my eyes, the relentless drive, and the innovative spark in my ideas. He taught me not just about technology, but about business strategy, leadership, and the intricate dance of the venture capital world. He became the father figure I never truly had, offering not just guidance, but unconditional belief. He taught me how to navigate the shark-infested waters of the corporate world, how to protect my intellectual property, and how to build a company not just for profit, but with purpose. And then there was Sarah. I met her at a university tech symposium, where I was presenting a paper on predictive analytics for market trends. She was a bright, energetic marketing specialist with a background in brand development and user experience. Our connection was instantaneous. She understood my vision, my passion for innovation, and my quiet ambition. More than that, she understood me. She saw the scars of my past, the lingering self-doubt that sometimes crept in, and she helped me conquer them. Sarah's unwavering belief in my abilities, her insightful strategic thinking, and her boundless optimism became indispensable. She was not just my partner in a rapidly growing business, she became my partner in life. She celebrated every small victory, every successful pitch, every new client, with a genuine enthusiasm that my family had never once shown. With Sarah, I felt truly seen, truly valued. We built our company, Aegis Dynamics, together, brick by brick, innovation by innovation, fueled by a shared dream and an unshakable trust in each other. As Aegis Dynamics began to gain traction, slowly moving from a fledgling startup to a promising contender in the tech space, the irony of my family's continued disregard became almost comical. At the infrequent family gatherings I still attended out of a sense of obligation, the conversations were predictable. "Still tinkering with those apps, William?" my mother would ask, a polite, vacant smile on her face. "Mark's just closed a huge deal for Uncle David. Expanded their manufacturing line," my father would interject, always keen to steer the conversation back to Mark's supposed triumphs. Uncle David himself, blissfully unaware of the true technological advancements sweeping the industry, would often lament, "These young people, they just don't understand real business. It's all about relationships, not those algorithms. Mark knows. He's got the right instincts." They were so consumed by their own outdated perceptions, so entrenched in their narrative of Mark's ascendancy and my perpetual obscurity, that they remained utterly blind to the magnitude of what I was building. They never asked about my clients, my team, my challenges, or my successes. They simply assumed I was still struggling, chasing some impractical fantasy. This allowed me to operate in the shadows, quietly building a robust, groundbreaking enterprise, securing patents, attracting top-tier talent, and establishing strategic partnerships with some of the most forward-thinking companies in the world. Their dismissiveness was, ironically, my greatest advantage. It gave me the space, the anonymity, and the drive to build something truly formidable, something that would, in time, speak for itself with an undeniable, earth-shattering roar. I never mentioned Aegis dynamics to them. I never corrected their assumptions. I simply smiled, nodded, and let them live in their comfortable delusion. The plan wasn't about anger anymore. It was about demonstrating irrefutable truth. And the stage was being set for a revelation that would expose their folly in the most public, undeniable way imaginable. They had sown the seeds of my quiet rebellion, and now the harvest was almost ready. The very foundations of their perceived superiority were about to crumble. The Thorne family's annual Christmas gala was more than just a celebration. It was Uncle David's yearly coronation. Held at the opulent grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Club, it was where he paraded his perceived success, subtly reinforced his patriarchal dominance, and, most cuttingly, showcased Mark as the undisputed heir to the family's legacy. Every year, it was a ritual of quiet humiliation for me. But this year, as my name is William, and as I stepped onto the polished marble floor alongside Sarah, the air didn't feel heavy with dread. Instead, it hummed with an almost palpable tension, a quiet hum of destiny. This was the night years of silent dedication, relentless struggle, and strategic planning would converge into one undeniable, earth-shattering truth. Sarah looked breathtaking. In her elegant emerald gown, she radiated a quiet confidence that mirrored my own. We moved through the pre-dinner mingling, accepting polite, often perfunctory greetings from various relatives. My parents, Emily and Mark Sr., were already holding court near the entrance, flanked by Uncle David and Aunt Carol, Mark's parents. And there was Mark himself, looking predictably smug, nursing a highball and surveying the room with an air of entitled boredom. He'd put on more weight, and his eyes, once merely dull, now seemed clouded, perpetually distant. Their eyes found me almost immediately. My father offered the usual brief, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture so ingrained it was devoid of true acknowledgement. My mother's smile was thin, a practiced curve that didn't reach her eyes. Uncle David, ever the showman, boomed, "William! My. Didn't expect to see you here, son. Still, fiddling with those little circuit boards in your room?" He chuckled, a deep, self-satisfied rumble, and Aunt Carol joined in, a little too heartily. Mark merely smirked, a flicker of contempt in his gaze. My own smile was genuine, unforced. "Uncle David," I replied, my voice steady, betraying none of the anticipation swirling within me. "Good to see you. And yes, still fiddling. More than ever, actually." I didn't elaborate, letting their complacent assumptions hang in the air, a silent prelude to the storm. Sarah gently squeezed my arm, a subtle gesture of encouragement and shared purpose. The dinner bell chimed, a crystal-clear summons, and we found our assigned seats at Uncle David's head table. It was a familiar arrangement. Uncle David at the head, Aunt Carol beside him, then Mark and his latest girlfriend, followed by my parents, and then Sarah and me, positioned at the farthest end of the table, symbolically and physically on the periphery of their inner circle. The conversation throughout dinner was as predictable as the silverware settings. Mark, with a performative gravitas, recounted a major deal he'd supposedly spearheaded for Phoenix Innovations, a small regional contract that he inflated into a national triumph. My parents beamed, nodding sagely, their eyes shining with vicarious pride. My mother even leaned over to me at one point, whispering, "See, William, that's real business. Mark has a natural flair for it. My achievements, my groundbreaking work, my very existence outside their narrow purview remained entirely unacknowledged, unasked about. It was as if I existed only as a quiet, slightly awkward testament to their benevolent tolerance. The moment arrived, orchestrated with a precision born of years of strategic patience. As the dessert plates were being cleared, Uncle David rose, tapping his champagne flute with a fork. The clinking sound resonated through the opulent ballroom, signaling his annual address, his moment in the spotlight. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, his voice echoing slightly, "another year of prosperity, another year of growth for Phoenix Innovations. And this year, I want to particularly recognize my son, Mark, who has shown exceptional leadership and foresight in guiding our company forward." He raised his glass high, "to Phoenix Innovations and to the future led by Mark." The polite applause began, a ripple of clinking glasses. But just as it swelled, a figure approached our table, cutting through the murmurs like a finely honed blade. It was Marcus Thorne, not a direct relative, but a distant, powerful cousin on my father's side, a man rarely seen at these family gatherings. Marcus Thorne was a titan of industry, a visionary CEO of a global tech conglomerate, a name whispered with reverence in boardrooms around the world. His presence here was monumental, akin to a comet streaking through a quiet night sky. A hush fell over our table, then slowly spread outwards as people recognized him. Uncle David's face, usually flushed with self-satisfaction, blanched. He quickly composed himself, extending a hand, his voice thick with uncharacteristic deference. "Marcus, what an extraordinary surprise. I'm David Thorne of Phoenix Innovations. So delighted you could grace us with your presence." Marcus Thorne shook his hand briefly, his piercing blue eyes sweeping across our table, pausing for a fraction of a second on Mark, then on my parents, before settling with an unmistakable warmth directly on me. "David," he acknowledged curtly, then turned fully. "William, I trust you're having a pleasant evening?" The world seemed to tilt. My family froze. Uncle David's outstretched hand dropped, forgotten. My father's jaw went slack, almost comically so. My mother's eyes, usually narrowed in judgment, were now wide with an almost terrified disbelief. Mark, the golden child, looked as if someone had just pulled the rug out from under his entire universe, his carefully constructed facade of indifference shattered, revealing pure, unadulterated shock. "Mr. Thorne," I replied, my voice steady, calm, betraying nothing but a polite composure. "It's a pleasure, thank you. And yes, it's been an illuminating evening." Marcus Thorne chuckled, a low, resonant sound that carried across the stunned silence of our table. He then turned, slightly, to address the now captivated audience of my family, his voice clear and authoritative. "I must apologize for the interruption, but I simply had to personally congratulate William here. Our partnership with his company, Aegis Dynamics, has been nothing short of revolutionary. The AI-driven predictive analytics and supply chain optimization systems that William and his brilliant team have developed have not only saved us hundreds of millions this past quarter alone, but have fundamentally reshaped our global operations. It's truly visionary work, a testament to relentless innovation." The name hung in the air, a bell tolling the truth. Aegis Dynamics, my company. The company I had built from the ground up, fueled by their dismissal, forged in the fires of their doubt. The company whose name they had never bothered to learn, whose very existence they had scoffed at, deeming it a mere hobby. Uncle David's face was now a sickly shade of gray. His mouth opened and closed soundlessly, like a fish out of water. My father stared, his eyes wide and vacant, a flicker of something akin to terror replacing his usual placid demeanor. My mother clutched her pearl necklace so tightly her knuckles were white, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Mark, who had been basking in the glow of his father's toast moments earlier, now looked utterly, completely deflated, his earlier boasts shriveling into pathetic, irrelevant whispers. Aegis Dynamics? Uncle David finally managed to croak, his voice barely a rasp. But I thought you were just doing small freelance websites, William, for local bakeries? His voice trailed off, pathetic and incredulous. Marcus Thorne's eyebrow arched, a subtle gesture of thinly veiled amusement. Small freelance jobs, David? William's company, Aegis Dynamics, is poised to become the undisputed market leader in AI-driven enterprise solutions. They just closed a Series B funding round at a valuation north of $3 billion. The figure, delivered with quiet emphasis, landed like a physical blow. We are not just their cornerstone client. We are actively pursuing a deeper strategic alliance, potentially a full acquisition, to integrate their technology fully into our global infrastructure. Their innovation is simply unparalleled. He then turned back to me, his expression shifting to one of genuine respect. William, I wanted to confirm our upcoming board meeting next week. We're eager to finalize the terms of the acquisition. Your team has provided us with extraordinary value, and we are keen to accelerate our collaboration. Of course, Mr. Thorne, I replied, a quiet, profound sense of triumph swelling within me, a vindication far sweeter than any anger could have been. My team will have the updated projections and the final term sheet ready for your review. Marcus Thorne nodded, offering a final, knowing smile before excusing himself, leaving behind him a gaping, stunned silence at our table, a silence that felt heavier, more absolute than any I had ever experienced. The mask had fallen. The carefully constructed narrative of William, the failure, the misguided tech enthusiast, had shattered into a million glittering pieces. My family, who had always seen me as an inferior, inconsequential footnote in their grand lives, were now confronted with the undeniable, staggering reality of my success. The silence at the table was deafening, punctuated only by the distant murmur of other guests, blissfully unaware of the seismic shift that had just occurred. My mother was the first to truly break it, her voice a strained, disbelieving whisper. $3 billion, she repeated, as if the words themselves were foreign, her eyes darting frantically from me to Uncle David, then back again, seeking confirmation from a broken mirror. Uncle David, who had always carried himself with such an imposing air of authority, looked utterly, utterly defeated. His shoulders were slumped, his face contorted. Mark, once so confident in his inherited superiority, simply stared blankly at his half-eaten dessert, his face a mask of utter shock and incomprehension. My father, surprisingly, was the first to speak directly to me, his voice hesitant, almost pleading, devoid of its usual dismissiveness. William, why didn't you tell us about Aegis Dynamics, about all of this? I looked at them, one by one. The memories of a lifetime of neglect, the casual dismissals, the forced smiles, the subtle slights, they all flashed through my mind, a rapid-fire montage of quiet suffering. Tell you what, Father? I asked, my voice calm, almost detached, yet imbued with an unyielding steel that cut deeper than any outburst could have. That the computer games I was playing were building a company that would eclipse everything you ever thought was important? That the hobby you dismissed would become a multi-billion-dollar enterprise? When would you have listened? When would you have truly seen me? I paused, letting the profound weight of my words sink into the suffocating silence. I built something extraordinary, something that genuinely innovates, creates real value, and changes industries. And I did it entirely without your belief, without your support, and certainly without your recognition. You had countless chances to see it, to encourage it, to simply care. But you chose to see only what you wanted to see, a convenient narrative of my insignificance that bolstered your own fragile egos. Uncle David finally found his voice again, raw with desperation, a tone I had never heard from him before. But William, Phoenix Innovations, it's been struggling so badly. Mark, he's just not. If only we had known. You could have helped us. You could have saved us. The irony was almost unbearable, a bitter taste in my mouth. He had summarily fired me. He had deemed my ideas useless, my presence a waste of space, and now, in his moment of impending ruin, he was appealing to the very person he had cast aside, the one whose potential he had so arrogantly discarded. "Saved you?" I repeated, my voice still calm, but with a frigid edge. "Uncle David, you fired me. You ridiculed my ideas, called them quaint and useless. You chose to put Mark, who understands nothing about modern business or technology, in charge of your crumbling empire. You actively chose to cling to your outdated ways and your misplaced favoritism. You made your choices, and I made mine. The consequences are yours to bear." Sarah, who had been a silent, powerful presence by my side, gently placed her hand on my arm, a silent gesture of unwavering support and profound pride. I looked at her, then back at my family, their faces now masks of utter desolation. The illusion of their superiority, their control, their unshakable standing had completely dissolved. They were left exposed, their small-mindedness, their past cruelties, and their inherent flaws magnified by the vast, unbridgeable chasm between their reality and mine. Marcus Thorne's external validation, a truth they could not deny, had sealed their fate. They were no longer the arbiters of my worth. They were merely spectators to my triumph, standing on the precipice of their own self-inflicted ruin. The immediate aftermath of the gala was a flurry of desperate, often pathetic attempts by my family to backtrack, to apologize, to somehow reclaim a semblance of their former standing. Uncle David cornered me repeatedly, his voice a desperate whine, full of forced flattery and veiled pleas. He spoke of family, of blood being thicker than water, of opportunities to unify our legacies. He even had the audacity to suggest that Phoenix Innovations could somehow be integrated into Aegis Dynamics, implying a partnership rather than the inevitable acquisition that was clearly implied by Marcus Thorne's words. "Uncle David," I stated, my voice firm, allowing no room for negotiation or false hope. We were in a quieter corner of the ballroom, but my parents and Mark still hovered nearby, straining to hear. "Family is built on respect, on support, on genuine connection, not on convenient kinship when it suits your agenda. You had every opportunity to show me that respect, to offer that support. You chose not to. And as for unifying our legacies, Aegis Dynamics is not a salvage operation. We are charting a new future, and it doesn't involve being shackled to a dying past built on hubris and dismissal." My parents, Emily and Mark Sr., adopted a more emotional approach. My mother, with tears welling in her eyes, gushed, "William, darling, you know we always believed in you. We were just trying to protect you from the harsh realities of the world, from getting your hopes up too high." I met her gaze directly, allowing the full weight of my past hurt to surface, though my voice remained steady. Protect me, mother? Or protect your comfortable narrative? You actively chose to dismiss my passions, to undermine my efforts, to elevate Mark at every turn while simultaneously making me feel like an embarrassing afterthought. You enabled Uncle David's contempt. That wasn't protection, that was neglect, dressed up as parental concern. My father, Mark Sr., stepped forward, his usual bluster replaced by a deflated resignation. William, your mother means well. We didn't understand the scale of what you were doing. We saw you working on computers, but we didn't grasp this. No, father, I corrected him, the edge in my voice undeniable. You chose not to understand. You chose to remain willfully ignorant because acknowledging my capabilities would have disrupted the convenient, familiar hierarchy you had established. You chose to dismiss it, and that's a choice you have to live with, not I. The family dynamics, once so rigidly defined by Uncle David's perceived authority and Mark's entitled position, shattered beyond repair. The wider extended family, who had largely gone along with the prevailing narrative of my family's superiority, now looked at me with a mixture of awe, surprise, and thinly veiled regret. Some distant cousins approached me tentatively, quietly congratulating me, some even expressing a vague remorse for their past silence or complicity. I acknowledged them politely, but my focus remained firmly on the people who had genuinely supported me, those who had seen my potential when my own blood family couldn't or wouldn't, my chosen family. Mark, the golden child, was utterly and irrevocably humiliated. His superficial confidence, already a thin veneer, evaporated entirely. The news of Aegis Dynamics' valuation and the impending acquisition by Marcus Thorne's conglomerate spread like wildfire through the family and their business circles. His public image, carefully cultivated by Uncle David, crumbled. He barely spoke for the remainder of the evening, retreating into a shell of stunned silence. Over the next few months, I heard through reliable channels that Phoenix Innovations, unable to adapt to the changing market, still relying on outdated strategies, and now utterly devoid of credibility, and my crucial underlying proprietary systems that had quietly kept them afloat longer than they deserved, rapidly declined. Uncle David, facing mounting debts and a collapsing business, was eventually forced to sell off the company's remaining assets for a fraction of their worth to satisfy creditors. Mark, unable to hold down any significant position, eventually faded into obscurity, taking a low-level administrative job far removed from the executive heights he had been so arrogantly groomed for. While I felt no overt malice, I also felt no pity. They had made their beds of dismissal and neglect, and now they lay in them. My life, conversely, continued its exponential ascent. The acquisition by Marcus Thorne's company propelled Aegis Dynamics onto the global stage. We became a dominant force in AI solutions, our technology reshaping industries. I transitioned into a pivotal leadership role within the larger conglomerate, directing cutting-edge research and development. The financial rewards were immense, but they were merely a byproduct. The true reward was the profound sense of accomplishment, the quiet satisfaction of having built something truly monumental from nothing but sheer will and intellect. Sarah and I purchased a beautiful home, not as a display of wealth, but as a sanctuary, a testament to our shared dreams and relentless hard work. Our relationship, built on mutual respect, unwavering support, and a shared vision, deepened with every new challenge and triumph. We established the Ignite Innovation Foundation, a philanthropic endeavor dedicated to funding and mentoring young, aspiring tech entrepreneurs from underserved communities, ensuring that others would not face the same lack of support, the same casual dismissal that I had endured. It was a way to pay forward the belief that Professor Vance and Dr. Tanaka had shown me. I found true internal peace, not in the money or the public acclaim, but in the profound sense of self-worth that stemmed from creating something of immense value entirely on my own terms. I no longer craved my family's approval because I had found my true family in Sarah, in Professor Vance, in Dr. Tanaka, in my dedicated team, and in the expansive network of allies and colleagues who valued me for who I was, for my ideas, and for what I could genuinely achieve. My past pain had been transmuted into an unyielding purpose, a powerful, silent engine driving me forward, liberated, finally, from the need for any external validation from those who never deserved to define me in the first place. The scars remained, but they were no longer wounds. They were reminders of how far I had come and how strong I had become. My story, the story of William and Aegis dynamics, is more than just a tale of revenge. It's a profound testament to an undeniable truth. Your worth is not, and never will be, defined by others, especially not by those who are too blind, too arrogant, or too self-absorbed to see it. It is defined by your resilience, your passion, your unyielding spirit, and your unwavering belief in yourself, even when you stand alone against a tide of doubt. I took the deep, cutting pain of neglect, the searing sting of betrayal, and the hollow ache of dismissal, and I didn't let them break me. Instead, I forged them into an unshakable resolve. I transformed that pain into my driving purpose, building something far greater, far more impactful than I could have ever imagined, not for their approval, but for my own profound vindication. If you are out there, watching this, and feeling invisible, undervalued, or trapped by the suffocating expectations and judgments of others, especially those closest to you, know this: your potential is boundless. Do not, under any circumstances, allow anyone to dim your light, to tell you that you are not enough, or that your dreams are too big. Boundaries are not merely necessary, they are essential for your well-being, for your growth, and for your liberation. Sometimes, the most powerful act of self-love, the greatest step towards your own triumph, is walking away from those who consistently diminish you and finding your own path, your own chosen family, who will genuinely uplift you, celebrate you, and truly see you for the magnificent person you are. Your journey might be lonely at first, fraught with hardship and demanding immense sacrifice. But every step you take, every skill you painstakingly acquire, every small victory you achieve, builds the unbreakable foundation of your own empire. And one day, those who doubted you, those who dismissed you with a wave of their hand, those who made you feel small, they will be forced to confront the undeniable truth of your colossal worth. And by then, when their world is crumbling around them, their desperate, urgent calls will come far too late. If my story resonated with you, if it sparked a flicker of hope or recognition, please share your own experience of overcoming adversity and proving your doubters wrong in the comments below. Hit that like button if you believe in the power of resilience, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of quiet rebellion, profound redemption, and triumphant vindication. And please share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who needs to know that they are not alone and that their worth is truly infinite.